We're live.
Yay!
I feel like I do
Welcome
that every
back,
time.
everybody. Should we give them a few minutes to come in?
We might need to, because the lag between StreamYard and YouTube is just getting bigger.
I just feel like no shade to StreamYard, but there's got to be a better way.
I feel like there has to be, because I feel like there's just no reason for the lag to be as intense as it is, because we can have
It's
a
like
whole
a good 30 seconds.
Yeah,
See,
it's pretty bad.
according to YouTube, we started streaming a minute ago. According to StreamYard, we started streaming 43 seconds. Okay, this is kind of good. Hi, Tati.
I wish I could see the chat, but I can't. Let me see.
You can't see the chat. Oh, I have my laptop open.
When you do it on your phone, it's so hard.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I have my
Back and
laptop
forth.
and my phone open. My laptop for the chat.
Jelly.
I just want to be petty and say, I love your twist out.
It's not a twist out, but thank you.
Wait.
I mean, it looks like it's giving us all types of life today.
Thank you. It's a wash and go, though.
You can do wash and goes? I cannot.
I only do wash and goes. Girls, I do not do twist outs. I do not have the patience for that. Anytime you see my hair,
I don't know how you have the patience for a wash and go, because it would take my hair forever to dry.
Yes.
Oh, no, baby. I have a blow dryer.
Okay.
I need to invest in one of those. Hey, everyone.
Hi,
see you guys comments. How do you get StreamYard to work on your phone? Well, you can't host through your phone, but you can be a guest through StreamYard on your phone.
Yes.
Did they change it? Can't you host now?
What?
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought they updated it so you can host now.
Yeah, if they did, that would be great, because I would love to just do it from my phone downstairs. Oh my gosh.
So we are going to go ahead and get started shortly, but I'm just going to do our intro real quick. If you're still coming in, come on in. Welcome. Welcome to Black Prose Club, or Black Prose Book Club, where Black lives, Black books, and Black writers have always mattered. This is the closing out of my quarter, which has actually been pretty seamless. Nothing crazy has happened, so
Thanks it probably.
But yes, we will be discussing our quarter 3 book today, Behold the Dreamers by Imbolo. I practiced how to say her name because I learned it from the audiobook, by Imbola Mbwe. And I'm very, very hyped to talk about this read because I still have a lot of emotions. I finished it very recently, and so I still have a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts. I feel like the story still hasn't sat with me or settled with me, so all of my emotions or thoughts are very fresh. So I'm really excited to talk about this. I feel like Brittany is going to go into 5,000 rants during this discussion.
I'm not. I'm going to be this is your quarter, this is your book. I'm going to let you do all of it.
What?
I might add my 2 cents, but honestly, I finished the book about a week ago. About a week ago.
Every live. Anytime we show our faces.
One day we're not going to do that. One day. I'm also working on my planner while we have this wonderful chat.
Troy tried to come for me and ask me if I had finished the book.
Oh my God. It was not shade. I was literally asking because I didn't want to say anything before we went live that spoiled.
She wasn't shading me, but it was just hilarious. Because you guys
think everything I do is shade.
You were just like, did you finish
the book? I'm about to say, no, Troy, that's not the problem in the situation. Actually, the first, he almost didn't finish a book. That's all that is.
I have mixed emotions. Okay, so what I want to talk about, the way I kind of want to talk about the book is, for those of you who haven't read it, we will let you know when we start going into spoilers, because I do want to kind of have a structure for this discussion. So if you haven't read it, you can hang around and enjoy the discussion. And then we're going to let you know when we're going to start spoiling things so that you can like X out of the live if you choose to, you know, maybe revisit after you've read the book and see how we think. But first, I want to kind of introduce and set the stage. I'm going to ask one of y'all to give us an overall brief plot, and somebody else to talk about the characters. And then we're just going to talk about the writing I want to talk about first, and some of the themes in the story arc. And then we really start talking about details. We'll let you guys know when the spoilers are going to start. I think that's a good setup.
Yeah, that's a good setup. We can do it.
So I will start with Brittany.
So I have to talk about what the book is about. So
yeah.
The book is set in 2008, and there is a young Cameroonian named Jinde who came to New York to chase the American dream, and he gets a job as a driver for a rich Caucasian male who makes a lot of money and his family, which gave him the ability to bring his family over, who is Nenny and I never remember his name, Leomi. So it's basically them trying to chase the American dream as immigrants who are trying to get their green card. That's the premise that we were given.
Yes. So that's a very overarching overview of the plot. Now, Troy, I will have you talk about, you know, just name the main characters and who they were.
Okay. So the whole story surrounds Jinde. He is the head of the household, the main household in the story. Then you have his wife, Nene, and their son, Leome. Then there's a white family, and the father in that family is Clark. His wife is Cindy, and they have two sons, the eldest being Vince, who's already an adult, and a son, Mighty, who's in maybe 8 or 9 years old. And then we also have, what is the lawyer's name?
Winston?
No, Winston is his cousin.
That's the cousin.
Oh, the fraudulent Nigerian lawyer that tried to get him help?
Yeah. I don't remember his name because I literally called him Nigerian Scam.
I can never remember.
I just called him the lawyer.
Yeah, I called him the lawyer.
Okay, I guess we're going to do the lawyer because I don't.
Yeah, we're going to call him the lawyer.
I can't remember his name either.
And then there were also other people at the Edwards' house, like Anna and other help there. And we also have quite a few other African friends. They're in Harlem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In Harlem. I know Oshile said she really liked Betty at the character.
She was hilarious.
She was. And I think that's pretty much the whole main cast, right?
Yeah, it was like Betty. Then there was Winston, the cousin, who helped him get the job as a driver because he got him a reference. Or Winston's boss. Wasn't Winston's boss Frank?
Yes.
No.
It was like his coworker.
Winston was Winston's coworker. Also, I'm gonna put in the chat that it's Boubarak. There we go. Is his name.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Ananda.
Was so fraudulent. So what I want to talk about is the themes. So after I finish talking about the themes, we'll talk a little bit about the writing. But a lot of the themes were that whole myth of the American dream and kind of the way that the American dream is perceived by outsiders or immigrants when they first come to America versus how Americans view the American dream versus the reality of the actual American dream and what it takes to make it into America. So there were a lot of themes. There were a lot of themes of privilege, race, classism, prejudice amongst African versus African Americans was an interesting theme. There were a lot of feminist themes in the sense of the difference between American women and African women and how they dealt with relationships, husband-wife relationships, and how they differed between cultures. There was a lot of the themes with Jinde remind me so much of one of my favorite books of all time, which is Things Fall Apart. Jinde reminded me so much of a Okonkwo. It was scary, like this whole fear of failure and this overwhelming pride and this feeling of like you're nothing, you come from nothing, and you're desperately trying to become something. And that whole idea of like self-worth and what it means when you see yourself as nothing, and like what that must really feel like to really feel like you're nothing. And then when you get something or a little bit of status to make you feel like you're high up, and when you come crashing down from that, and how that affects you psychologically and mentally. That was really interesting. There were also themes of just like family, a mother's love, and what a mother will do for her children. There were a lot of really interesting themes throughout the whole book that I would love to get into in a little while. But what I first want to talk about was the writing, because I listened to the audiobook, which, fun fact, my friend narrated the audiobook. So it was really weird because I didn't know he narrated the audiobook. Like, he's an actor and I knew he did like audio work. So when I got the audiobook and I started listening to it, I was like, Prentice? And then I looked on the cover and it was like narrated by Prentice Onayemi. And I was like, oh my God.
Weird,
Prentice.
because he also does Rage of Dragons and he did one of Tochi's books.
He's so
I've listened
good.
to his voice a couple of times where I was like, oh, you're friends with him? Tell him I like his voice. That's all.
I will. He does like so many different voices. And Ananda knows Prentice too. We went to school with him. He does like so many different voices and characters so well. His singing was beautiful. Like, the audiobook was like a production. Like, I felt like I was there. So I highly recommend the audiobook if you've either never read it or want to reread it at some point. But the audiobook, maybe it would have been different if I read it, but the writing kind of threw me off sometimes, because at times characters were introduced that it was never like explained who the characters were, or it would be explained in like one sentence, and then I'm like thrown off and I'm like, wait, who is this person? Like, what are they doing here? So that was a little weird. And then there were like jump cuts where it was like all of a sudden she would be talking about the past, and then she would jump to the present, and then she would jump to like a week later, but there was no connecting like paragraphs. It would just be like, I can't explain it. It was like we would be in Jenday's head in like one of his memories, but we would be in the present, but then we would go back in time, but then we'd go back to the present, and then the next sentence would be like a week later, and I'm just like,
how did we get here?
So the audiobook, I mean, I think maybe if I had read the book, it would have made a little bit more sense, because when you're physically reading it, you can kind of, arrange it in your mind mentally, like, oh, okay, next sentence, now we're here, okay. But just listening to it, it was a little bit, it reminded me a lot of She Would Be King in a way, because that's like, where are we? What's going on? Who are you? When did you get here? But that's just, maybe that was just the audiobook.
No, I feel like, well, it could have been the audiobook, right?
I think we all listened to the audiobook, so I don't have much to say.
Yeah, but I didn't even, because it was never available for me to pick up at the library, so I never actually got my hands on the book at all. So I just listened to the audiobook, and I don't think that I would have enjoyed this book if I didn't listen to the audiobook, to be honest. There was a lot of fluff in this book.
I don't think it would have kept my attention had I not listened to the audiobook, because it was very easy to, do other things while I was listening to it. But if I had to read the book, I don't know if I would have even finished it.
How do y'all feel about the writing style?
I didn't dislike it necessarily, like, at all. I think it was fine. I think more so reading the characters through the writing style was a little bit annoying. And just in the sense that, like, for instance, if Jenday was third person, but we were centered on Jenday, we'd all of a sudden jump to a different character and we'd be centered on that character. And I'd be like, wait, weren't we just in the car with Jenday? Now we're talking about Clark, and Clark being in this hotel. And I get super confused. So other than that, like, I think the writing was fine, but I think, like you said, it was just kind of jumpy, and it was kind of hard to follow at some points.
I agree with that. I was going to say, I don't think I had an issue with the writing style. I had an issue on the way that, for some reason, like, every time you were focusing on, Nene, you focused on something different than them. And it was always like, well, aren't we supposed to be learning about them? Like, who is this? Yeah. Why do I care about Cindy's friends? I don't.
So that was another thing about the book, is the whole book was supposed to be this relationship between Jenda's family, a Cameroonian immigrant family, and the Edwards family, which is an upper class New York elite Caucasian family. And in the backdrop was the whole 2008 financial crisis and Lehman Brothers collapsing and all that stuff was in the background, because Mr. Edwards, or Clark, worked for Lehman Brothers as what was he, a stockbroker? So
big dogs.
So it was kind of, for me, I kind of feel the same way as both of y'all. I really wanted to know more about Jenda's family and the Cameroonian side of things, and every time they focused on that, I was really, really drawn into the story. And then whenever we focused back on the Edwards, I was very bored and uninterested, mostly because I don't know if it was like the character development or what, but I just didn't care about the Edwards family. I didn't care about them.
Yeah.
I think the only person I cared about the Edwards family was the little boy, Mighty. First of all, I loved his name. I loved that his name was Mighty. It was never
I thought it was a typo at first.
What?
I thought it was a typo at first.
It was so cute. It was never explained if it was like a nickname or his actual legal name, but I freaking loved his name. And he was just this like innocent little boy who was caught in this really toxic family environment. And I really just felt for him. So he was really the only Edwards that I liked. The other Edwards, like Cindy had a lot of problems. Cindy
had a lot going on.
Cindy is a topic on her own.
Crystals, Jesus, and exorcism. Yeah, but I'm just like, ooh, she had a lot of issues. And I don't even know where to begin, because if we start talking about this, we're going to start going into spoilers. But
yeah, because I mean, there's really no way to talk about Cindy.
I don't know how you talk about any of the characters without there being spoilers.
Yeah. So spoiler alert for those who have not read this book. We are about to go into spoilers, because now we have to dive deeply.
We have to dive. I've been waiting for this dive.
We have to. First, I want to say some positive things. What are some things that y'all liked about the book to get us started?
I like Nene.
Yeah, definitely.
I like the fact that she was the scene with Dean or whatever, when he was telling her like this like shouldn't be a thing for you, and she was like, I'm doing this. I don't even need you. Like, I was just, yes, tell him, sis, let him know. I also, how do I put this? Because I'm not an African woman, nor have I ever married an African man, so I can't speak on this, but she did what she could with what she had.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I was mad for her circumstances, I was still just like, well, clearly she's making the best out of this situation because she feels like she had no other choice.
Yes.
I wanted to scream at her and be like, I wish you had some American girlfriends.
I know. But here's the thing. I related to her so much because I do come from a West African family, and that is kind of how it goes. Like, as a wife, you do follow your husband's lead, and you don't have a lot of say in a lot of things. Like, he can come to you for advice, and depending on the type of husband you have, you may be able to like sway him, or you may have more influence over his decision making than, you know, on the average. But that's kind of the household I grew up in. Like, my dad was very much like the one who made the decisions. Like, he was the one who decided to bring our family to America. Like, my mom was just kind of like, okay, like, you know, whatever you think is best. Now, the difference is that my dad is like obsessed with my mom. So he does whatever she thinks is best. So it ended up working in her favor because my mom is like, oh, I think we should do this. And she like kind of plays innocent. And then my dad's like, okay, well, your mother said this, so we're going to do this. But I understand that it's not like that in all African households. So I understood her, and I felt her pain because she wanted her own life. She had her own dreams. She wanted to be a pharmacist. She wanted a better life for her kids. She would really love New York City. Like, I felt like her American dream was more genuine than Jenda's, because she came from circumstances where she had been shamed. She had been like subjugated to pretty much like abuse, like verbal abuse and mental abuse by her family in Cameroon. And Limbe, that was the town that they were from. So a little bit of background for those that haven't read the book. Nene and Jende had known each other for a really long time. And she came from a family that was like a little bit more wealthy than Jende. Well, a lot more wealthy than Jende's family. And so her father never approved of Jende being with Nene. And so there came a point where she got pregnant when they were younger. And the father, it was like this huge scandal. And the father would not let Jende marry her because he didn't like him. And he actually ended up getting him arrested for impregnating his daughter out of wedlock. And so Jende actually ended up going to like jail for, I think it was like a year or two or something crazy.
That's wild.
It was wild in Cameroon, y'all, in Cameroon. This was back in Cameroon before they came to America. So she ended up having the baby. The baby was born dead, unfortunately. It was a stillbirth. So it was like she went through so much trauma. She had to drop out of school. Like, so she was just kind of like in her dad's house, like being verbally, mentally abused and looked down upon. Like she'd already been through a scandal. Everyone in her town already thought she wasn't shit. And the man she loves is like she's not allowed to be with. So when Jende goes to America on this like scamming ass visa that he managed to get from the Cameroonian consulate, can we talk about the scamming that went on in this book? But anyway.
First of all, I feel like, I know this is going to sound terrible, but I feel like his cousin Winston tried to really help him.
He was really trying.
Winston did the best he could. Winston really did the best he could, but Winston could not overcome how Jende ultimately was weak. Can we just say that he was weak?
Yes. Can we finally say that?
He was weak and he gave up.
He's like a crybaby.
Nene was so much stronger than him at the end of the day. He was weak. But that's what makes it so tragic. So it's like he comes to America finally on this like fraudulent ass, scamming ass visa he managed to get, works his ass off, like, you know, scraping together money for like, I think like 5 years before he can finally bring her. And they had a son again, another baby. So he brings her and his son over and then he marries her. And then that's where the story kind of starts. But she's already been through hell and back. And so she had this dream of being a pharmacist and going to school. She came over on a student visa and like making a better life for her son. And then in the course of the book, she gets pregnant and ends up having a daughter. So as women, I feel like I really connected to her and I really understood her. And it just made me sad for her that her husband was so weak. Weak. Those are my thoughts.
What is the best way to put this?
Oh, no.
You would think that because he kept harping on the fact that in Cameroon he was considered to be nothing and that he was considered like low class, you would think that somebody like that would be in this country and like not, it was like he was only okay with being lower when he was being validated by white people. But the moment he lost his job, then he hated where he was. And it was like, you've been here this time. Like, this is where you've been the whole book. Now you mad? And so, $30,000 a year made praise the words.
You know what? That is so true because he lost his spirit and his fighting spirit when he lost his job with the Edwards family. And after that happened, he was just like a broken man. And he just all of a sudden, it was like his American dream and everything he wanted was tied to the Edwards family and Clark Edwards and how much he validated him as a man by giving him that chauffeur job and like all of that. That is so interesting. I definitely think that's true because her validation was never tied to them.
Nope.
Her thing was all about her dreams and like wanting a better life for her kids. That's really what motivated her, was the thought that her children had a chance to be whatever they wanted.
Yep. Because like, remember, whenever she would argue with him about it, and it would be like, well, what about our kids? And he'd be like, they'll be fine in Cameroon. You literally word said that like 3 chapters before this. 3 chapters before this, you were so excited because Leome was going to have all these opportunities that you never had, and da 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 da. But I guess because y'all have, like, he turned into this mindset where it's like, well, I've got American money now. Like, I'll be rich where I am. Yes. So, like, that'll be different. And it was just like, how come you get to change the dream for the entire family
when you didn't get that money in the first place?
He wasn't the
I was just about to say that. I was like, if it wasn't for your wife, you would not even have had money to go back to Cameroon to be this big bar. Like,
and that's the sad part is, I think what it was like when Clark Edwards gave him the job of being his chauffeur, and he had the opportunity with that salary that was so big to him. It was almost like, now I am somebody. Now I'm going to be somebody. When he lost the job, he went back to that mindset of like, I'm nobody. But he thought it's almost like his backup plan was like, but I have American money, so I can go home and be somebody. At least I won't be going back home and being nobody. And he was thinking to himself, if I stay here since I've lost this job, hoping that somehow like all these appeals work and I get my papers, but I'm still a dishwasher, I'm still a nobody. I can stay here and try for this American dream, but I'll be a nobody for a long time. Or I can take this money and go home and be a somebody. Like, to him, it was all about him being big in other people's eyes. And like, his self-worth was like it wasn't coming from within. Thing. Like, he didn't actually value himself from within. His self-worth was all based on how others viewed him.
Yeah, it was sad.
And that was the problem. Like, he was so afraid of failing his wife and children, but he didn't understand that failing them in a way was giving up. I mean, so many feelings and thoughts on that, because I kind of knew the ending of the book did not shock me, because I kind of knew that they were probably going to end up going back home, because there was so much foreshadowing. Like, in the beginning, I mean, the
2008 financial crisis was terrible, so I knew they were going back. I just didn't think the short period between when he lost his job to when they went back, I just didn't think that he was going to decline so much.
Yeah.
Because he worshipped his wife until after he lost his job. Then she became this evil person. And like it was like watching Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but like a totally different way, where it was just like, am I reading in person? Because he was just like, everything is awesome. And then it was like, no, I hate it. I hate everything. I'm working so hard. Also, it was like, you wouldn't have to work this hard if you let a wife work. But hey, that's just my opinion. Maybe you really don't want to be here, because are you actually doing everything you can? Because your wife is more than willing, more than able to get some coin herself. And I mean, okay, it wasn't as much as you were making, but it was like he only had a one-track mind. And if it didn't work the way that he wanted, no one else mattered. No one else's thoughts mattered. No one else's dreams mattered. Nothing. And the way that he kept making it seem like women were subclass anyway, it was like, I'm not surprised that this is really happening.
And let's not forget, like, towards the end, Clark offered to help them. He offered to find a way to keep them there.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
If he really wanted, like, if he really 100% cared about Nene's whole, I want to be a pharmacist, I want to be a queen, yada yada. You didn't care. What happened to all that white validation at the end of it?
I honestly think that to him, not only did her dreams not matter, because to him, her place was in the home, and her place was, taking care of his kids. I also feel like he didn't want her to become bigger than him, because, if he stayed, and I mean, she'd already made like that honor roll society that wanted her to induct her in and everything like that. If they had stayed, and he had really helped her go through school, and she had achieved her dream of being a pharmacist, I feel like he really feared that she would all of a sudden be like this big woman pharmacist. And it's like, who is he? I honestly feel like that was a part of his reasoning, like just based on his character and how he was and how prideful he was. Just like when she was like,
quickly he cut her.
Yes.
Like that episode, or not that episode, that chapter where he was like, "You're taking time off to take care of our kids."
Yep.
I was like, literally before this, y'all would talk about things like, okay, so the final decision was yours, but like normally there's a conversation, and like it was like she became his third child essentially, because he was like, I want you to spend time with our baby. And it's like, she's just going to class. She's not like she's gone for the whole day. She's gone for like an hour or two at a time. Like,
and their marriage was so like weird anyway, because there was like a point where she wouldn't tell him where she was going. Like she didn't tell him that she went to see the professor, and she didn't tell him about all the conversations she was having. And I was like, if you're lying that much in your relationship, I don't think it's the healthiest of ones, because he was getting super angry about anybody she talked to about anything. Like it did not matter who it was.
I think she was afraid of him. Because if you think about it, her whole livelihood and well-being depends on this man. Like he brought her to America. He's paying her school fees. You know what I'm saying? Like he's afforded her the life that she's living now. Like she really doesn't have anything if she angers him, or, you know what I'm saying? Like she depends on him for her entire life. And that's kind of what happens when you're in a situation as a woman in a relationship where you literally depend on the other person for your entire well-being, like whether it be financially, materially, everything is dependent upon this person, and you don't have anything of your own. So the power dynamics are already going to be off. So even if they ask your advice on things or talk to you about certain things, it's almost like they're throwing you a bone or they're doing you a favor as a courtesy, because at the end of the day, the power dynamics are already off in the relationship. Like one person holds all the cards and the other person's just kind of hoping that, if I make his favorite meal and do all these things, everything will be fine. So I already felt for her in that sense, because I was like, there's literally nothing she can do. Like when towards the end, when he made the decision that they were going to go back to Cameroon, you could tell she was absolutely devastated. But realistically, what could she do? She couldn't stay in America by herself. You know what I'm saying? She didn't have a way to support herself. She didn't have a way to pay for school. He was paying for her school. So even if she was like, I'm just going to stay on my student visa, and, my daughter is an American citizen because she's born here, we're going to figure it out with my son. She couldn't have stayed, because who was going to pay for her school fees? Where was she going to live? Like all these things. And I thought about that the whole time. So I was like, she needs to leave. She needs to do this. And it's like, she can't leave. She's stuck.
Yeah. I didn't think for one, I was like, because like you said, I actually did not say, I did say, girl, I wish, because when her friend, because Betty is just clearly Betty is hilarious. She was basically like, I got a cousin you could marry.
Oh yeah.
Like, for a green card, Betty was like, look,
why is this so casual? Like I got a husband, Betty, I got a cousin, you need him.
Betty was definitely like that African immigrant that has been in America for so long that they're Americanized. Because Betty was literally like, tell him you're not going.
Yeah.
And then he was like, what do you mean tell him I'm not going? Like she couldn't even fathom that reality. And Betty was like, tell him you're not going. Like she was like, I mean, duh. Like tell him it's not going to happen.
No, it was Betty that was like, that is your money. And I was like, yes,
your
Betty,
money.
That is your money.
That was the part that really made me start, because I didn't really start disliking Jende until the end. I had moments where I wasn't fond of him just because his low self-worth, his low self-esteem, his weakness, how much he literally kissed the ass of whiteness. All these things, I was just like, ooh, I'm not, but I understood, like psychologically, I understood his mindset, because he has a neo-colonialism mindset. Like if you talk to a lot of West African people or immigrants, there's a lot of neo-colonialism going on, and nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever talks about the mindset of how a lot of Africans do worship whiteness and feel like white is best, and white means purity and wealth and security and all these other things. But anyways, that's a whole nother tangent. But I really didn't start disliking him until towards the end, when she revealed to him how she got the money, and he had the audacity, honey, the audacity to look at her like she was like this person that just crawled out from under a rock, like she was just like this criminal and this evil person, and how dare you do this to her. The same white woman that got you fired from your job, sir, like it reminded me so much of like, oh my gosh, it reminded me so much of race relations between Black men and white women, of like a white woman can literally, as a Black man, take your entire life from you, whether it be literally or your livelihood, and you still come to their defense, because we are so trained to view white womanhood as like defenseless and weak and pure, and oh, feel bad for them, and oh, come to their rescue, and da 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 da. And you don't even realize how ingrained that is. And to me, that was just like the perfect example of that, because you are yelling at your wife. What?
Didn't he say something like, she's going through enough, why would you do that to her? Or something like that?
You are literally yelling at your wife, the mother of your children, and taking up for somebody who lost you your livelihood, and you could literally be on fire across the street, and honey, she would cross the street and keep moving. Like,
I mean, we saw how she responded when she got the money. We heard Cindy's true colors when she went to go get the money.
Oh, the part about Cindy, because I did feel bad for Cindy. Okay, yeah, she was very annoying. She whined a lot, but when she told her whole backstory about how she was the product of rape and her mother abused her and I was like, okay, well, she clearly has mental health issues and she has a lot of trauma she hasn't dealt with. So I started to feel bad for her and have sympathy for her and empathy for her until she had the fucking audacity when Nenny caught her like passed out on the bed, like drunk, clearly having like, almost overdosed from pills and all that. And she tells her this whole story, and then she tells her, you know what, Nenny, it's not as bad for you, because everywhere, you know, she was like, I grew up in poverty, and Nenny was like, I understand. And she's like, oh no, well, it's not as bad for you because where you come from, everyone is poor. But it was really bad for I forgot. I was like,
everyone's poor thing took me clean out. I was like, wait,
why was like everyone in America?
She was like, it's not as shameful for you because, you know, everywhere you come from, you know, everyone where you are, you know.
Everywhere in Africa is poor.
But for me, as a white woman in America, to be poor was just unacceptable.
Why does all of America think that there is no metropolitan areas in Africa? Like they think that there is no Wi-Fi, no nothing in Africa.
I was like, oh snap! I would have came across that table. What?
That was another thing that annoyed me too, was like how much Nenny played into the ignorance, because okay, yeah, Mighty is like what, 9-10 years old. He clearly doesn't know any better. But like feeding into his ignorance about where you're from is not cute. Like,
yes, where she was talking about how they rode on Zebras. What? Like, this ain't the Lion King? Shut up.
Lion King?
She was like, I had so much fun telling him about how monkeys would steal my lunch and this would happen and we rode around on elephants. And I'm just like, why would you feed into his ignorance like this? Like, this is not okay. Like,
right, like he has the ability to learn things. And instead of teaching him, you decided, let me go ahead and continue the lies.
Like you putting on a whole African minstrel show for this little white boy. Like, what is happening? Oh, hi.
No to say, he probably came in to see his aunt, and now she's trying to keep him off.
I know, this is hilarious.
You might as well showcase now, because he wants to be there.
Hi, cutie. Hi, cutie.
Your parents are going to kill me.
I don't know, they won't.
Yes, they will. Go.
I don't want you to get in trouble.
Go, Bo. I'll be back.
We know. But let me think. Oh, what I wanted to talk about. Okay. So we've talked about like the difference with the African family and like just showing their power dynamic and things like that. I felt like the book not put enough emphasis on their relationship until everything went downhill. Because during most of the book, the only relationship that we were really focused on was Clark and Cindy.
That was why I was bored. Like, I had moments where I was listening to audiobook where I literally fell asleep because I didn't care about Clark and Cindy. No offense, but I don't know if it was like the author didn't build their characters up in such a way where I would care, but also they were very hard to relate to and empathize with, because if you looked up like white privilege in the dictionary, like their pictures and bios would be next to it, like they were very stereotyped. There's very like
the stereotype
of the rich white family where the father's a workaholic and is never there for the wife or their kids. And you have one son who thinks he's super woke. And then you have the other son who's just lost in the shuffle. And then you have the wife who, because she can't believe her husband's never home for her and there for her, she's trying to keep up with the Joneses, but she's an alcoholic and pops pills on the side. Like, it was very stereotyped. So yes. I just didn't feel an emotional connection to them. So I didn't really care what happened to them. Outside of Mighty, I was like,
literally, if they were at least been a little bit more interesting, like it was so basic. It was like, she was whining about her husband working, but still wanted to be rich somehow. I don't know how that dynamic was going to work. Him not working, but them still being rich makes no sense. And then, they have the one son who decides he's going to go to India and
live in his privilege and go to India on a whim.
Still living on his money and everything. It was just so boring. I was just like, if they were at least a little bit more interesting, maybe I would have cared. But I was just like, literally, it's like, what was the secretary's name? Leah? Was that her name?
Leah.
When she told Jende, like, oh, there's word around that, everything's falling apart and, it's going to be like us who gets fired. And Jende's like, no, they wouldn't do that to us. Like, you've been with Clark forever. And she was like, no. They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
We are not going to be okay. And when that happened, I was just like, can we please stop talking about them? I really do not care about the Edwards, because he was harping for these white people so much. And I was just like, dude, do you really think if his wife tells him, I don't like them, I don't want them here, fire them, he's not going to fire you?
Yeah. Jende had this like weird hero worship for Clark that Clark never earned. This is literally just your boss. Like, you drive him from place to place. He has not done enough. This is the part where I started to feel kind of iffy about Jende. Like, I still somewhat liked him because I was able to empathize with him. But this was the part that I was really like rolling my eyes. When he would be driving Clark around in the beginning of their working relationship, and he would be telling Clark all of his business, like where he was from, how it was in the town he was from, Limbe, and like how he came from nothing and this and this and this, and giving him his opinions and being like, oh, Papa God, by God's grace, so blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this man does not care about you. Why are you telling him your whole life story? He could care less. He hired you to drive him from point A to point B. You're thinking that y'all are building this bond, and this man don't care about you.
Well, also remember, while he was telling him my story, he would also be like, and it's because of you that I don't have to worry about that anymore. Like, I thank you so much. He would constantly. And I was just like, sir, where did this hero worship come from?
Yeah.
And why is it so intense?
Especially really after Cindy asked Jende to start writing in that journal where he takes Clark to. I'm just like, come on now. Come on now. It was such a setup.
And he like fell for it. And this is when I knew he was weak, because Winston was like, I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do. What you're gonna do is you are going to go to Miss Cindy and let her know, look, I'm not doing this. And the reason I'm not doing this is because I know all about your little pill popping. I know all about your little, 3 bottles of wine a night. So
again, Winston for the win.
Yes.
Winston for the
win. It was like, you look her dead in her face and you say, look, I got something on you. You got something on me. You don't say nothing. I won't say nothing. We good. But he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. He had to be a little pussy. No, not pussies are strong. He had to be a little dick.
No, can it be all of these things?
I always hate when people say that. Like, no, pussies are actually strong. He had to be a little ding-a-ling and go to Clark and out Mrs. Clark. Like, they're not a whole married couple, and they're not going to choose each other over you every time. Like,
Like he was gonna ruin his marriage behind his driver. Listen, I'm sorry. I wouldn't ruin my marriage behind the driver, so why would he? Doesn't make any sense.
None.
Also, real petty. I could have been like, I just took an Uber. It's just, I don't know. In my mind, I was like, since we bought it up, we talk about the scene where she found her like laid out halfway on the bed, and she called Betty, and Betty was like, "Why do you care? Is she alive?"
That's how I felt.
No, the funniest part was when she said, "If the police come, I ain't in it."
Don't mention me. You never called me. Delete your call history.
Betty,
I don't know you.
If we were like that was my favorite surprise. That's my surprise favorite character because that was the realest. Like, I'ma help you, but if you get in trouble, I ain't had nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
What you calling me for? And then she was like, I gotta help her. They're rich.
Why?
If she wanted help, she'd get help. Whoop.
When I tell you, if I was Nettie and I worked for them, I would have seen her laying there and I would have tiptoed my ass right back on out and gone right back to.
I would shut that door real slowly.
I've been lying, I didn't see nothing, I didn't hear nothing, I don't know what happened. Just like when she overheard, this is the part of the plot where Nenny ends up getting a job with the Edwardses through their housekeeper, Anna, who couldn't go to the Hamptons. So Nenny got the job.
Oh, the summer house.
At their summer house in Hamptons. And so this is when Nenny kind of gets pulled into all the Edwards family bullshit and learns all of like Cindy's dirty little secrets. But there's a night where Clark is actually home for once, and him and Cindy get into this huge fight that is so loud that Nenny could literally hear it from her room in the house. And they're screaming because their son Vince, who is their eldest, decides that he's just gonna wash his hands off of law school and all the privilege that he has and go to India. Like, just move to India because he's been spiritually awakened. And they get into this huge fight, and Mr. Edwards like leaves or whatever. And she's like, and then he's like, I want to go out there and comfort her. And the whole time I'm screaming at the audiobook, but why why do you care?
I was like, all you gotta do is turn the radio up and act like you didn't hear anything. Yes. What are you doing?
So uncomfortable. I would have put my earplugs in and gone right back to sleep. Like, oh, it's too bad. But she felt the need to go out there and comfort her, tell her everything was gonna be okay. I was like, okay, see, this is your downfall. This was y'all's downfall. This is why it ended out the way that it did, because it's like all of these small actions, if y'all just not being employees and emotionally detaching yourselves and putting like family above you and caring so much, this is what led to y'all's downfall and y'all ultimately leaving America. This is why. All of these circumstances.
I just that mind your bit. I'm like, Anna has never comforted Mrs. Edwards. Why did you feel like you needed to do it?
And did you peep how Anna tried to set Nenny up?
I was about to say, speaking of Anna actually know better than Cindy. Mm-hmm. Anna was like, well, she does have a problem.
Maybe
but I mean, I don't want to get in trouble. Like, if you go talk to him, then like I'll back you up. I was like,
she was not going to back her up.
Mm-hmm.
That part pissed me off so bad. She was like, no, you go and you talk to them. And I was like, no, don't do it. It's a trap. Don't do it.
I was literally, but she didn't do it. I was like, oh God, you're not that dumb. Thank God. Jesus. But again, I've said this to you guys on the chat. One character that aggravated me was Vince. Vince is that privileged, white, young person who considers themselves woke without acknowledging the privilege that they have, because I just don't know too many people in this world that can just be like, F law school, I'm moving to India with no job, no plans, no nothing, and just know for a fact that they're going to be okay because money's just coming into their account. And also, why did you feel like you needed to go to India? What impact did you think you were going to have over in India when you keep stating all the problems in America? If you so well, why are you not here trying to solve that problem? But now, according to your dad, you're about to open a retreat for rich white people in India. What kind of privilege was that?
Just the disingenuousness of it all. Like, he had the audacity to fix his lips to talk to a poor immigrant African family about the struggles that he has coming from so much materialism and so much meaninglessness in life. And how, these corporations are evil. And I was like,
what?
Do you have no self-awareness at
Right? None whatsoever. None.
Like,
Because anybody other than Jinde would have told him to shut up. But Jinde, of course, had to talk to Master Vince.
Yes, I would have respected him so much more if he would have been like, you know what? I acknowledge, my situation. I know not everyone can do this, and da 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 da. However, this life that my parents have just isn't spiritually, emotionally fulfilling for me. So I'm gonna do this. I would have respected him so much more, but he coded it with so much bullshit behind being like so enlightened and just like he was better than them. I was like, you're not better than them. You're literally just taking a different track. It's literally the same track as them, but it's like there were two paths in the same wood. One path goes to the right and one goes to the left, but they're still in the same fucking woods, bro. So you're still in the same woods. You just went to the right and your family's over here to the left. Like nothing is different.
Cause like he like would talk about like it basically being blood money, but he went to India
with
and lived in India with the blood money. So it doesn't really make it sense.
Because his dad definitely would make sure he had money in his account. And I was like, so the blood money is good for you, but it's bad for everyone else. But like, you're using the blood money, my friend.
The only plus side to him was that he was rarely in it.
That's it. That's what I think. All the car conversations with him, I was just like, I don't know why the author chose to leave these conversations in. He further just trying to illustrate another way of divide between the Edwards and the main family. Is this what this conversation is for? Because otherwise, what is the purpose of us hearing about him saying that the corporations are corrupt?
I think so. I mean, I think they were trying to show the irony. To me, that's what it seemed like, was irony. Because he was clearly not self-aware about his situation and his position in life, even while he was speaking up against he was speaking out against the same things that were providing him his lifestyle. The sad part to me was how cold he was about his mother's death. Cold. I was like,
I didn't even get to that part yet because I wanted to talk about the hotel rendezvous.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Can we talk about it? Because first of all, you guys realize that his coworker mentioned that hotel like in the beginning of the book. Yeah, like when they were on the phone.
He was like, just let me know when you want to be stress-free or something.
Yes, like they mentioned that in the beginning of the book.
And Clark declined. He was like, no, that's not my thing. Or something like that.
Yeah.
I was waiting the entire book for that to happen. I didn't expect it to be a prostitute. But
I knew it was.
Not only was it a prostitute, but the phone conversation asking like, what can she do? I was like, listen, wait.
Like, is she gonna do what it says on the website? I was just like,
I was like, first of all, what kind of website is this?
I'm like, and why were NDAs signed?
There's so many websites, kind of like how Backpage used to be. But my issue was, maybe this was like, again, I feel like when you listen to an audiobook versus reading the book, sometimes it can be a little lost in translation. But I was just kind of like, his character just never seemed like somebody that would do that.
No, that was another thing. So like, he was a workaholic. He was a workaholic, but he didn't seem like a bad guy. Also, didn't seem like he didn't love his wife. He didn't care for his wife. It just seemed that she was constantly hounding him, so he felt like pressure or whatever. But there was a section in the book where like he was going to the hotel and their relationship was getting better. So it was like, because basically in my mind, the Edwards are literally like somebody took a trope, the rich family trope. And every bit of the rich family trope, they threw it into the Edwards without any real dissection, without any real description. It was literally like, okay, he's stressed, he's gonna cheat. Oh no, scandals, suicide. What? Like,
it made no sense. It threw me off because it just wasn't in Clark's character to do that. So I was very confused by why he was doing it. And then
because the way he cried. Remember the way he cried?
Yes.
It don't add up. Like, he was just at hotel. He was at the Happy Hotel every night.
Yeah.
But then he became so hysterical that he became a completely different person for his child and wanted to everything and move away because of the shock of his wife dying. I'm like, that don't even add up. What the Hotel Clark, if his wife would have died, he would have just got a side piece.
Yeah. It really came out of nowhere, and I almost feel like it was just a plot device.
Yeah, they needed him to have a reason to get fired.
Yes. But yeah, that whole part threw me because I was just like, and the part that really annoyed me was Jende being so cavalier about it.
Well, Mr. Edwards works hard. Okay, he married though. Like, what?
That part was just like, oh my God, he was so cavalier, and he knew better than to tell his wife because he knew his wife was going to tear him a new one.
That's the part that kept cracking me up. Oh my gosh, y'all! So we gotta back up because we have yet to talk about that scamming ass lawyer.
Oh yes,
I forgot about him.
Bubakar, something like that. Literally, I referred to him as scamming ass lawyer in my mind. Every time I heard his voice on the audiobook, I was like, scamming ass lawyer.
His voice was the best narrated voice. It cracked me up so bad each time. And let me tell you what, if I had sat in his office the first time and heard him say all that bullshit, I would have walked out.
My brothers were taking me out.
Oh my God.
My brother. No.
And Winston was not feeling him.
No.
Right. And I was like, why are you not listening to Winston? Winston, screw this dude. We good.
They never listened to Winston. And then he would throw in his little like Muslim, like, inshallah, inshallah,
right.
Inshallah, my brother. And I was like, okay, you saying these things does not make you appear more trustworthy, sir. I don't know if you think that it will, but it's not working.
And wait, didn't Winston's lawyer friend say that like none of the stuff that he was doing made sense?
Yes.
Like he had a whole lawyer friend.
He was like, I heard of it taking a while, but it's never taken years. That doesn't make any sense. And I was just like, because he a scam ass lawyer.
And this is the part that really.
How do you picture look?
How do I picture he looks?
How did you picture the scamming ass lawyer to look? Because I created an image in my head.
Oh my God, I saw this like short little squat little man with his like mustache, little glasses, butt teeth.
I pictured him with some really extra ass looking Easter suits where he always gets. That's what I imagined. I was like, oh my God.
Him and like there's always like something in his teeth, and he's always like dabbing his brow because he sweats profusely. Like. He's like 5'5".
Oh no!
I'm 5'5".
Not 5'5", bro.
This is the part that bothered me though. So we're in 2008. There is no reason why you, as a man who's so desperate to stay in America, can't do your own research. So you mean to tell me he never researched any of this stuff that Bubaka was telling me? Like, if I go to an immigration lawyer and they're saying, oh, we need to make up this crazy story about you needing asylum, we need to do this, we need to do this. I'm not just going to take their word for it. I'm going to go do research and be like, how many people win asylum with stories? Like, because the government is going to look into your story. Like, they're going to look to see if there's any civil wars going on in Cameroon. They're going to look into see if it is common for family members to kill other family members for such and such and such and such. They're going to look and research. So the fact that he just trusted this man, and it's not like we're in 1995, we're not in 1983.
Right.
We are literally in 2008 where there's access to the internet, books, libraries.
Social media existed at this point. Like, it didn't even make any sense.
There are also like immigration lawyers who do stuff pro bono. So he could have looked up and gone to somebody who's doing. My dad, the way we got our papers is he used a lawyer who did a lot of stuff doing pro bono. So a lot of the advice that my dad got when he was trying to get us all our green cards and then eventually our American citizenship was through a lawyer that didn't charge him anything. And so I'm just kind of like, You really didn't research anything like.
But in the beginning of the book, it literally was like him and his wife looked up the type of interview questions that he would ask. So they know how to do research on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Mandy McAllister asked, do you remember how he got hooked up with the lawyer? Does anybody remember how he got hooked up with the lawyer?
Did Winston like hear that he was supposed to be a really good lawyer?
I think it was Winston who heard it from another person that bought on and then was like, oh no, this guy is trash. But it was like and then I felt bad for Winston on that part because, you know, again, Winston been really going hard for Jinde, and then gets there and is like, I really don't like that guy. I really don't like him. I really don't like him. And then it comes down like, I knew I didn't like him. And it's like, no, we're going to go with him because it's harder to switch lawyers. Just
no,
like,
it's not.
Who told you that?
That all just seemed like an excuse to me because it was like, for somebody who wants something so badly, you didn't try hard enough. You didn't do your own research.
Everything about Jinde was an excuse.
He was so lazy. Like you left your fate in somebody else's hands. Who leaves their fate in a country in 100% in someone else's hands? I wouldn't.
Like, that is literally some frail masculinity right there, because he was like, I don't want Winston to do everything for me. Bull. I would have come to America and been like, Winston, hook me up here, hook me up there, hook me up here.
Winston was more than willing to do it.
He was more than willing. And if
Winston was more of a brother to him than anybody else.
If I trusted my cousin enough to get me a job, made sure I had a great place to live, all these things, help me get my then girlfriend and child over, and then he looks at me and says he doesn't trust my immigration lawyer, and that's the time I choose to not listen to him and stand on my own 2 feet. What?
Right. It's like, sir, you've literally, like, Winston has literally told you what to do your entire time here.
And let's not forget, nothing he said made sense about wanting to do things on his own, because, baby, that 10 grand you did not get on your own.
No.
Your woman got that.
Okay.
First of all, Winston also told him, go get your money.
Yes.
Like, granted, homegirl, because listen, that was such a G move, in my opinion.
It was.
But
oh my God.
Yes, it was extortion. Let me be clear. Yes, what she did was hella illegal. That is definitely extortion.
He was getting deported anyway.
But yeah, I'm about to say, but she was going home. She was getting deported anyway. You know what? When somebody is pushed up against the wall and they have last resort tendencies, it's very clear that she was going to do whatever she could to ensure that her babies stay in the States, whereas he was getting mad at her for going out there. Again, she took that picture for her own safety, and it ended up giving her family 10 grand.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I lost all respect for Cindy. The little respect and empathy I had went right out the window when she had the audacity to just look at her like she was literally something beneath her foot and be like, could you leave now so I can finish my book? And that's when Nanny was like,
listen, when she wouldn't even look up at her,
what?
She wouldn't even look up at her. She was like, well, I was wondering, well, I can't do anything about that. I'm so sorry. And then all of a sudden, you despicable bitch, after everything I've done for you. I was like, you were giving her clothes as hush money.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You gave her leftover food.
Yep.
You gave her hand-me-down toys and hand-me-down clothes as hush money to hide your addiction. So what really were you doing for them? Because everything you did was for yourself. But of course, she should have been so grateful that a rich woman just looked down on her poor circumstances, because she even sent diapers when she had a baby. And I was just like, this privileged ass woman.
It was clearly that place of like, she felt so much better than her. She felt so much better than Nenny and her family and her circumstances. And she wasn't even trying to hide it at that point. You know?
Right.
It just pissed me off so bad when she was just like, can't do anything for you. And then when she realized that she was being blackmailed and that she was about to be outed for being a druggie and alcoholic, and all of a sudden, you know, she's calling her all kinds of names and all kinds of, and when I tell you that was like the most G moment in this whole fucking book was when Nenny sat there and was like, oh, well, I mean, I guess I could be whatever you say I am, but this is gonna be in the papers, honey.
Listen, no. She was like, I already looked it up. When they come in, I'm gonna just tell them that this is what I was here for, and I have no idea what she's talking about. She's like, they're gonna ask for evidence, and the only evidence they're gonna get is a picture of you. And I was like, oh, you Google that. You Googled that, sis. You figured out how you get away with extortion.
Yeah, that shit was hilarious.
Oh no, this is great.
There was one moment that Bubaka actually said something profound that is so timely to what's happening right now with BLM. Remember when he was like, my advice to Black men in this country is to avoid the police. Do you remember that whole paragraph and speech he gave?
Yes.
That quote, it was such a good quote, but it was like, the police in America are for white people. And he was like, and sometimes Black women and maybe Black children, but as a Black man in this country,
never
for you. And that gave me chills because I was like, that is so crazy. Because this book was written so long ago. And yet it's so spot on.
And you know, in a weird way, like I understood why Jende was so like hell bent on not wanting the name, how you say her name, to tell people about their situation with, you know, getting a green card and everything. But at the same time, his need to feel like he is providing was overpowering his need to make his family happy. Like, you know, like even if it would have lasted, like even if you got a legitimate lawyer to come and help you guys, it still was going to take a while to get a green card. You couldn't have thought that like you came to this country and you were going to get a green card in a month. Regardless of anything, you was going to take a minute to get a green card. Just period. Unless, you know, you would have went ahead and let Nene marry that cousin.
Okay. Okay.
Oh my God.
Something we have to
that
talk
cousin
about.
part took me out.
There's something we have to talk about. Trigger warning for domestic violence. But we have to talk about this scene before we wrap this book up. We have to talk about this. I really don't want to talk about this, but we have to. Okay. So once again, trigger warning for domestic violence and physical abuse.
Let me just put trigger warning as a banner before we start this. That way, if somebody's viewing this, they know that like we're having a conversation about domestic violence. There we go.
So
now talk about it.
Was anyone else shooketh to their core at that scene? Like, I was shocked.
I wasn't shocked. I was waiting for it to happen.
Me too.
Was waiting because it was like a slow progression of him getting angrier and angrier at her for overstepping her place in their household. That I was legitimately waiting for her to slap him, waiting for him to slap her. I was waiting for it. And when it happened, I was like,
what was the thing that broke the camel's back? I forgot.
Remember, his feet started swelling and back started hurting, so she would be massaging him. And as a last-ditch effort, because they've been arguing about him, just, you know, the whole moving back home thing. As a last-ditch effort, she was like, you know, there are better doctors in America. Like, if we stayed here, like, you have a better chance of, you know, better healthcare for these issues that you're having. And then he literally told her to shut up and not say another word. And she said another word.
Well, because like, didn't she already mention other way? Because like Troy said, it was leading up to it. The way that he freaked out when she went to church and talked to the pastor, it was just like, oh my God, he's gonna beat her.
Yep.
Oh my God. And when he did it, I was like, oh my God, he's really beating her, and in front of his child, he's beating this woman.
The part that really traumatized me was not that he hit her, was the fact that she demanded that he hit her again. He like, it was so weird. It was like he hit her. She was like, you know, screaming and like, oh my God, I can't believe you hit me. Like, what the heck? But then she came at him in anger and was like, you know, you brought me to America to kill me. Like, hit me again. I dare you to hit me again. I dare you. I dare you. And I'm just like, why are you egging him on?
I think she just had a reaction to being hit because, you know, he was supposed to be this loving, caring man, like, and she's never seen this side of him before. So when he hit her, I think it was one of those things where it was like, if you're going to hit me, just kill me now. Because, like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, I'm not about to be in a domestic violence relationship. Like, if this is what you're going to do, just kill me now. Plus, when the neighbor came to the door, first of all, the neighbor came to the door with the quickness. We need more neighbors like that. Well, the only thing is, like,
no, not on my watch.
This is the part. It's like, okay, if I was in a relationship and somebody put their hands on me, I would have stabbed him because that's my nature. But it's like this random dude was like, well, I hear from the lady. And then she's like, oh, I'm okay. And she's like on the floor still when she said it. And I was just like, but the part that made me mad, the part that just irked me to my core was when he came back the next day and bought her flowers and got down.
Yes. And the sentence, two things were extremely traumatizing and eerie. The part where Leomi came out and had to see his mother on the ground with his father over her, and then the father and then Jende turned his anger on Leomi and screamed at him completely.
Yes.
Terrible. The other part was the sentence that was like, he came the next day with flowers, being like, I'm so sorry. And it said, and she forgave him because what other choice did she have? And I was just like,
yes.
Oh.
It was
this is the kind of relationship, like, obviously, like, we don't know how their relationship goes. Like, the book ends before, you know, the book ends with them literally going back to Limbe in Cameroon. But to me, all I could think about was, and this is how it begins. This is how you start to resent your spouse to the point where you, like, wake up one day and you absolutely hate them and you can't stand them. Because it's like all these little things that just add up. And as a woman in her position where you literally have no choice, you have nowhere to go, you have nothing to your name, you have no education, you don't have any money, you don't really have independence. So you're stuck in this situation. And for the power dynamics to be so skewed and off, it's like she already resents him because he physically harmed her. And then there's another thing for your child to have to witness that. Then it's another thing for him to take away your dream of living in America and being a pharmacist. Then it's another thing. Like, it's just like, I'm just like, oh my God, this relationship is not going to end at the end of the day.
Jende knew if he just voluntarily deported, that it would also mess up his son's chances of being able to come back.
And he didn't care.
And he did not care. Like we keep saying, the most disappointing part of this book was Jende.
Especially for someone who supposedly cared about his son so much. I do think the biggest win in the story that I didn't even realize until the end, and it literally gave me chills, because as a woman reading this story, I had a lot of frustrations with Jende, and I had a lot of problems with just how Neni was treated and how she was literally robbed of her dreams. And I just knew that she was going to be like an old woman in Limbe, bitter as hell. But the silver lining was her daughter. And the fact that she's an American citizen. And it did not hit me until the end. It did not hit me till the end. And I was like, yes, baby girl can come back anytime, honey. She can do everything that her mother never got a chance to do. She could be independent. She can live her life. She is an American citizen. And that was
we have another comment by Mandy. It says, it was interesting hearing that Nene was what she was going to do if he did it again, which means hit her again, go to Winston and then his mother. You remember that when she was like trying to talk herself into like how it wasn't actually that bad. He did do it again. She would talk to Winston to talk to him about it. And I was just like,
yeah, because what did she say? She was like, because she knows it's not her agenda and it's an evil that's gotten into him because of their situation. And I was like, girl, no, he's just himself and just a jerk.
So much abusive behavior in that. So she was making excuses for him abusing her. And it was like, he wouldn't do this normally if he wasn't so stressed out. And like, I'll just Winston to talk to him about it. And I was just like, no, because when I get stressed, I hit people.
Right. That was the sad part, but like the sad reality is in like a lot of West African cultures, it is the mentality of you can do whatever you want with your wife and no one's going to interfere. Like in those cultures, you know, family is only going to interfere if they feel like you're going to kill them. The police are not going to get involved a lot of times. It's like kept in the family, and like they have this idea that a man can do what he wants with his wife. And it's really, really despicable and horrible. But she is a product of her upbringing, her culture, and her environment. And so in her mind, she's like, this is my husband. You know, it's kind of like that conversation she had with her other friend, not Betty. Who was the other friend? I can't remember her name.
The one who married a guy and he wouldn't divorce her. Because she has one friend. Because Betty's the one with a bunch of kids, right?
Yes. And Betty's the one who's no. Betty is the one who has been in America for a long time, but she's still just a braider. And she has that boyfriend, I think. The other friend was the one, I can't remember her name, but she had like a bunch of kids, and they were talking about like just, you know, they were talking about the difference between American women and their relationships and African women and their relationships. And they were like,
yeah,
you know, African women, like, we do what our husbands tell us to do. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, we follow them. We do what they say. Their word is law, da, 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 da. And there's nothing we can do. We just got to follow it. Like, she was just like, these American women, like, they can stand up for themselves and they can do all these things. And they were just kind of laughing. They're like, yeah, we don't do that. Like, and they were almost kind of like saying that American women were backward and that American culture was like backward or something. Do y'all remember that conversation?
And I do, because they did talk junk. Like that was the same conversation where they started randomly talking about how African Americans embarrass themselves in front of white people.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, that was another thing that was very interesting, was like the prejudices from Africans versus African Americans. But there was a lack of self-awareness there as well to me, because I was like, y'all talk so much junk on African Americans, but you're here in their country trying to make it in their neighborhoods. Harlem is an African American.
It was very
weird.
You know what I mean?
Like, I'm just like,
the comments they're so random too. It would be like a conversation like, well, don't be like them African American street looking crazy. It's like, wait, no, why did you have to throw it?
Do you remember when Jende was like making those like really horrible accusations as a joke against Nenny, and he was like, oh, like, you've been messing around on me. Like, you went out into the street and like messed out around one of these African Americans with his pants around his ankles. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And she was like, why would I do that? She was like, why would I lower myself in that way? Are you crazy?
Right. I was like, these unnecessary digs. Like, yeah.
And remember she was like, oh, these men and their baby mamas and da 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 or something like that. Remember that?
Yeah, it was, but was like, all of those comments came at such random moments. Like, we were reading and then they just randomly threw in a dig, and it was like, well, dang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
I'm offended, and it was nothing to me.
It was very uncomfortable, but it was also just like, but you're in their country, in their neighborhood. Like,
yeah. But they didn't see it like that. They saw it as being in the Edwards world.
Mm-hmm.
In the Edwards city. That's what thought as. And it's like, oh, this scene where Jende gets fired by Clark. I really thought Jende was going to throw that briefcase upside his head.
When I tell you, I had fallen asleep because it was boring. And then all of a sudden, because you know when you listen to audiobook and you fall asleep, then all of a sudden Prentice's voice starts screaming. And he's like, what's up? How did you do everything you told me to do? And I like jerked up out myself. I was like, he was like, I did what you told me to do, sir. And I was like,
and I
was in that man.
I was actually shocked that he even did that, to be honest.
Same.
I was shocked that he even. I'm shocked. I was like, oh, you have a little backbone.
That was the moment he broke, though, because he was never the same after that. That was the moment he emotionally, mentally, psychologically, everything broke down. Because after that, he was a broken man and he was defeated.
Yep.
He was defeated after that scene. And Clark, I mean, it just goes to prove how much Clark ultimately didn't give a shit, because he was just like, I'm sorry, here's a check. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was
2 months worth of pay after doing all that for you. That's all. Like that's why your
When
wife
all the money
gave
they
you
be throwing,
when I tell you, I would have been like, well, you know what? This is really unfortunate, because now, I'm going to have to talk to the New York Times about all the times I dropped you off at that hotel. And,
Well, he did sign
maybe
an
there
NDA.
could be... What?
He was the only character in this book that signed an NDA.
mm-hmm.
I would have been like, I'm fired now, though. That NDA is no longer valid.
I would have
I'm
definitely gave him that notebook. Like, so every time that I said that he went here, every time that he was at the gym, he was actually at the hotel. Here you go.
I would have called up that same magazine that printed that original tabloid story, but like, yo, I got some stuff to add to the story.
I got some stuff to tell you?
And I would have embellished it. I was like, he was definitely using bailout money. I saw him. I saw the money myself.
I mean, it's like, you think about it, and it's like, on one hand, I felt terrible for Jende on that part, but at the same time, I was like, sir, you had to have known that she was going in trouble. Like, Mighty was crying for you, my guy. Mighty was crying that you were about to get fired. And he told you what up, and you still didn't believe him.
He didn't. And the sad part to me was like his deterioration in his mental state, where he was like, that whole part where he was like, to go from wearing a suit to work, where you are somebody and carrying a briefcase and you're driving an important person around, to being a dishwasher. And I'm just like, in my mind, they're the same level of service jobs. Like, okay, one gets paid more because I guess the person you're driving around is wealthier, so they can afford to pay you more than, well, no, they're about the same level of wealth, but a restaurant, they're cheap. Restaurant owners are cheap as fuck, and they're not going to pay you what you're owed. But I was just like, in my brain, they're on the same level of work. But it's like that. It's all about appearances with Jende. I'm wearing a suit. I'm driving this nice Lexus. There's this white man coming in and out of the car. I feel like somebody. And it's like, but in the back of a kitchen washing dishes, I don't feel like anybody. I just thought that was very interesting.
Yes.
I was
the
like,
American dream.
They're kind of the same.
The American dream.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Let's see if there's any comments, and then we could wrap it all up. Oh, Abominable says, this story is a perfect example of the hierarchy in the minds of men. Their success is based on its ailments to white success, and the women cannot attain success on their own until the man does. It was very Booker T. Washington.
It was. It was very much about this idea of white superiority. And when you align yourself with white superiority, then you have achieved the American dream. Then you are successful. Then you are somebody. Then you've made it. Because of your proximity to that white ideal of being an American and being an American success story. And it's like, the further you are away from that white ideal, it's like a litmus test. The further you are away from it, the more you're a failure, the more you're a nobody, the more you're nothing, the more. And I was just like, Lord, have mercy. You need therapy, sir. You need therapy. Cindy needed therapy before she decided to check out of Earth permanently. Like, Mighty needed therapy for his fucked up family. Clark needed therapy because he just needed it. His character was the most confusing to me, but yeah, Clark's character was the most confusing to me.
So overall, what would we give this book?
I actually gave it 4 stars.
I haven't graded it on Goodreads yet. I would have given it I wanted to give it a 3.5, but since I can't, I will round it to 4.
I give it 4 stars because at the end, I was actually really moved by the whole process of them moving back to Limbay and like how symbolic that was. And I kind of I felt like the author at the very end was kind of putting into our minds this idea of like being okay to be from your country and how the American dream isn't all it's cracked up to be. And just because you don't make it in America doesn't mean that you shouldn't be proud to be where you're from, and doesn't mean you can't go back home and make it where you're from. And she was kind of introducing this whole idea of like, because especially when he was saying like, oh, you know what, my kids will be able to go to schools in like the better schools at home, and they'll have their culture and they'll have their people and they'll have all of that. And he was happy about that. Yeah. And there's this whole idea back home of like, everyone always leaves home. Like I'm talking about like Nigeria now, personally, my personal experience. Everyone always leaves home, they say, and they either go to America or they go abroad to Europe, and they never come back. They always go back for like, they always leave for like a better life, right? Or like better education, to give their kids better opportunities, but then they never come back. So then you have all these amazing, bright minds out there being educated and becoming successful lawyers, doctors, all these things, making a name for themselves in the West, but they never bring their achievements and their talents and everything they've learned back to their home country to improve their home country. So their home country continues to decline and go downhill. And you're taking everything, you're like taking the best resources of a country, which is like the people, right? And they're leaving. So I kind of saw that theme at the end where Mbolo Mbwe was trying to introduce this whole consciousness of like, it's okay to go back home. And it's okay to build at home. Obviously, he's going back with like blood money that his wife won, but you know, whatever. But like, it's okay to go back home, and it's okay to build there, and it's okay to be proud of where you're from. And you don't have to have this American dream to be someone. Like, you can build in your whole home country and be someone there. So it was like, I kind of saw that in the end, towards the last, couple chapters. I felt like that's kind of what she was saying, but 4 stars.
Okay. I feel like we wrapped up quarter 3 pretty well.
Yes.
It's like quarter 3 is done. We're actually in quarter 4. We're approaching quarter 4. So I'll explain that because
say it again, I can hear.
Oh, I was saying I'm gonna let you guys explain what we're gonna do for quarter 4, since this is into quarter 3.
Okay, I'll explain it. So, guys, for quarter 4, it's going to be different than the last 3 quarters. We're going to go back to doing what we did last year and have you guys vote on the 3 of our picks for this quarter, and that will be the book of the quarter. So you would go to Goodreads like you used to do and pick, and then once we have, I think we do it 2 days about for the poll to be up, and then after that we will announce the book on Instagram, on Twitter, on Goodreads, so you guys know. So do you guys have your book picks?
I do.
I do.
I don't know, because I want it to be an adult book, and I can't think of anything that isn't super overhyped, super overexposed, or hasn't been read already by a bunch of people.
That's hilarious, because I'm for once choosing a super popular book.
Me too.
Okay, yeah. Let me hear y'all's choices.
I'm choosing Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, because this is a debut novel, and I follow her on Instagram, and then I like the premise of the story. So my original plan was to pick an adult, but okay with picking this one just because it's a different story. It's a different story about Blackness, where it doesn't seem like it's going to be based in trauma, where it's like magic. And I think this time it's actual magic, not metaphoric magic like Echo.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's actual magic and they're like fight demons. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe this is what I wanted Black Girl Unlimited to be, I think is what we're going with. So hopefully this one does not disappoint me.
My choice is Cinderella is Dead by Callan Byron. I don't know how to say her last name.
That's a good one.
It's a Cinderella retelling that I've been wanting to read since it came out. So that is my choice.
Yep. See?
I think I'm going to go with, and I just decided it right now on a whim. Now I'm torn. I'll ask y'all in the chat what you think before I announce it.
Okay.
But
yeah, it'll be posted in Goodreads first.
Yes.
We'll post it. We'll make sure it's posted tomorrow. So we'll send out a mass message to all of our members on Goodreads so you guys will know when it's up, and then you guys can vote. And then 2 days later, we will have our book club of the quarter.
And if you don't pay attention to Goodreads, we'll also post it on Twitter and Instagram that the poll is up. So you'll be able to know.
Abominable said naked time.
Abominable said our next announcement. If you did not catch on our social media, we have officially announced the Naked readathon, and it is not naked. It's naked.
Naked.
Get naked.
And it is basically like it's an ode to Black romance. No, Melanin Eclectic won't be reading any more Black romance in 2020. But I will be doing the graphics and supporting you guys who choose to read, because I just can't. I cannot. I can't.
And we will be giving a full breakdown of the Naked Readathon this week at some point. We'll let you know when the announcement video goes up. It'll probably be more towards the latter half of the week because we have to get the video together and put it up. We'll explain the readathon, the dates, the prompts, the group book. It's going to be a great time. So
I'm excited. Plus, you know, we got a lot of good reaction from you guys when we posted it. So that's always
a good time.
There may or may not be a shirt added onto our spring in honor of our Naked readathon. We just gotta wait till the end of the week, you know, when we just final announce for it so y'all can see what it is.
Yes.
Do we have any announcements? I'm looking at our notes trying to see if there's any more announcements. Patreon.
Oh.
Don't forget, we are on Patreon. The first month of the book club Patreon will officially start on October 1st. So if you sign up this month, you don't actually get charged until October 1st. So again, we ask you guys, if you want to support us on Patreon, this is not mandatory. If you want to support us on Patreon, sign up, you know, a little bit early so we can get a head count, so we can decide, you know, what we're going to do content. That's I think about it.
That is it for today's live. Thank you so much for joining us for my quarter. My name is Oshale of Oshi Reads. You can find me on YouTube at Oshi Reads. You can find me on Instagram at Oshi Reads _ and on Twitter as Oshale _O'Day. It's been a pleasure hosting this quarter. We have some great lives that we have posted for these past 3 months. Definitely go check them out if you haven't already. Please give this video a like. That really helps with our engagement. Please subscribe, because I don't know how we ended up with more followers on Instagram than we have subscribers, but we're trying to catch up. Not sure how that happened because we don't really post on Instagram. So subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and I will let the other two hosts introduce themselves and give their socials, and then we're gonna be out.
Okay. Wait, you want to go next?
No, okay. Go ahead, Troy.
I'm Troy Nicole. I'm Inkfleur Studio here on YouTube, and I am Bookish Waffler on Bookstagram and Bookish Inkfleur on Twitter.
And I am Melanin Eclectic on all platforms, with an extra Instagram for my shop, which, by the way, you have until 11:59 EST to get 30% off in my shop tonight. So if you hadn't gone to get your things, because 30 plus new items in there, haven't gone, you've gotten to 11:59 Eastern Standard Time tonight to get that 30% off, or, you know, wait to pay full. I will not argue on that. That's it for me.
And thank you so much for joining us for this discussion of Behold the Dreamers by Mbola Mbwe. And we will catch you in our next live. Mwah! Bye. Bye.